Right, evening everyone. It is Friday the 12th of February, nearly Valentine's Day, and in a very romantic fashion, my wife is upstairs in bed. Unfortunately, she is stuffed full of cold and feeling absolutely shit, so boo. My youngest daughter is also stuffed up in bed, feeling absolutely terrible. My oldest daughter is just being my oldest daughter, but yeah, fun times being doctor of the house and having to take care of everybody. So they're all in bed, everyone's asleep, so I'm just going to have a couple of drams and get myself to bed as well to catch up on some sleep. Tonight we are going to do a couple of blends because I basically haven't got any other drams that have been donated by anybody. So if there's anybody out there that's got any whiskies on the list that's on the bottom of the screen here, dramaday.tumblr.com /list of whiskies. If you've got anything on there that you can spare, 25ml, that's all I need, 25ml, it's half of that. It's not a lot that's not on that list, that's not crossed off, and you've got 25ml of it that you could send my way. That would be fantastic, because I've got probably about 80 so far, either heading in on the way or in various bottles that I've got at the moment. But that's still way short of the 366 that I need. So yeah, any help you can provide, and likewise if you can follow that up with a donation. Basically, if you were to think of it as a sponsorship and you were to think of 10p per dram, that's £36.60, which isn't a lot. But if I could get 100 people to do that, 100 people sponsor me at 10p a dram, that's 3,660. Yeah, sounds about right. 3,660, that would be amazing. That would be absolutely brilliant. I put £5,000 on my Just Giving page as a just kind of a £5,000. I have no idea. But if I could get 100 people to sponsor me at 10p per dram for the year, to get £3,500 for the Children's Heart Surgery Fund would be unbelievable, way above my expectations. And it would make this more than worth it. So anyway, tonight's dram, I'm going to do two of them, but obviously one at a time. Obviously I'm not going to mix them, am I? They're already blends as well, conveniently enough. So the first one we're going to have is, there's the camera, Chivas, get out of the way of my head, Chivas Regal. Chivas Regal 12-year-old. Or as one customer when I was working at the whiskey called it, Chivas Regal. Do you have any Chivas Regal? I was like, no, but we've got Chivas Regal, you weirdo. Anyway, this is a blended whiskey. Now this was, on the label it says founded in 1801. Now this is another example of marketing kind of bending the truth, or taking some information and using it to their advantage. It says founded 1801. What was founded in 1801 was a grocery store by a guy called John Forrest in Aberdeen. Now it proved quite popular, and it was aimed at sort of the more affluent people in the area. And in the 1850s, I think it was 1851, sorry, a little bit earlier, 1843, it actually got the royal warrant to supply goods to Queen Victoria. Now, a little bit later than that, there were two guys called John and James Chivas. You can see where this is going. And they were working at the store, and as part of the goods that they were selling, which were to the more affluent customers, so it was, you know, very high quality goods, they got into blending whiskey. They were basically buying stock from various distilleries. They were also taking grain whiskey and blending it together and selling it to their customers. So the Chivas brothers essentially broke out on their own, and in the early 1900s they decided to, the original whiskies that they were making weren't called Chivas Regal. Why am I calling it Chivas Regal? They weren't called Chivas Regal, but obviously having that royal warrant to sell to Queen Victoria, and having a royal warrant gives you that, you know, the meaning to call it Chivas Regal. But it was called something like Royal Long D or something like that. And it was only in the 1900s that they decided to export to the US, where there was a really big kind of, the economy was booming, people were looking for high quality goods, and they decided to release Chivas Regal predominantly to the US to export it out there. And they dubbed it's actually on their website being dubbed as the world's first luxury whiskey. And that's really what they were going. They were going for sort of the more affluent, the richer, the poncier. But the ones that it's more of a status symbol than a whiskey itself. But you need that quality in there to at least keep people buying it. So this took off in America, absolutely massively so. And in 1950, the Chivas Brothers, the company, bought the Strathisla distillery, which is a distillery in Speyside. And I won't go into the distillery so much because I'm hoping that I'll be able to cover it off as an independent, as a separate single malt, because they do release separate single malts. But Chivas Brothers, the company, who are now owned by Pernod Ricard, and had previously been owned by Seagram's, bought the distillery to give themselves a core stock, a continual feed of this particular whiskey to use as a core. Now there are some other malt whiskies in here, and grain whiskey as well, to give you that filler, as I've discussed before with in terms of blended whiskey. It's a combination of 1 or 2 or 5 or 2,000 different single malts and grain whiskey, and that's what makes it blended rather than a blended malt, because you've got grain whiskey in there, which is essentially used as filler. Now it does give some flavour, and it does help with the balancing, but it means that you can keep your costs down, you can sell it for less, but you can also kind of not have to spend as much or require so much single malt stocks, which are harder to find. Now this says 12-year-old on the label, so what that means is, of the single malts that are in this blend, the youngest is 12 years old. There could be anything up to 30, 40-year-old in there, unlikely, but it might do. But the youngest single malt that's in there is a 12-year-old. So anytime you see an age statement on a blended whiskey, like Bell's 8-year-old, that is the age of the youngest malt whiskey that's in that blend. So, very, very highly regarded this. Now, apparently this was Frank Sinatra's whiskey of choice. This is what he used to ask for. And apparently Chivas Regal actually sponsored one of his tours in 1990. But this was his dram, and it was very popular in the Rat Pack. So, I was thinking I need to put something up, and I can't think of anything because you've seen the bottle and it does look like that. There's no point putting Strathisla map up, so I'm just wibbling now. Anyway, so very, very highly regarded. This has been described in one review. I can't even talk, and I've not even started drinking it yet. Described in one review as a whiskey for grown-ups, which sounds a little bit pretentious to me, but we'll see. So there's quite a high malt content in this as well. There's a high percentage of single malts as opposed to grain, but there is a sharpness to it which is indicative of grain whiskies. It's not quite metallic and it's not quite coppery, but there is an edginess to it, but there is a nice sweetness as well. Now this is at 43%, and it tastes a little bit like that could almost be higher. Interesting that it's 43. Oh wow, that was weird. There wasn't an awful lot to start with. It was there was a bit of fieriness to it, which made me feel like it was higher than 43. But then as I swallowed, all of a sudden there was this kind of pop of, it's like a Werther's Original, a real big sweetness in there. And all of a sudden it just went, really, really smooth and really, really rich. There's a rich mouthfeel to this as well. There is a bit of woodiness to it in there. And it's almost like it's difficult to describe, but it's how you would imagine the type of wood that you would put on a fire would taste like. That makes no sense whatsoever. It is a woodiness, but it's not an unpleasant woodiness, and it evokes fireplaces. And I don't quite know why I'm describing it like that, but that's really the only way I can do it. It's the sort of woodiness that evokes the feel of a big sort of triangle shaped log that you throw on a fire and it's still got the bark on it. It's a Friday night, I'm tired, I've had a long week, but that's really the only way I can kind of describe it. Like I say, it's not unpleasant, it's actually quite comforting. It's quite a nice woodiness to it. The sweetness is there. It's not silky smooth, but there is quite a lot to it. Considering it's such a big name mainstream blended whiskey, it's got surprising complexity to it. And there is this underlying sweetness as well. This would go, I would imagine, very, very well with a cigar, because there is a very, very slight, very gentle smokiness to it, but it's not like an Isla Peaty smokiness. It's more of a kind of distant bonfire and fireworks night or something like that. Very, very pleasant indeed. Now it's about 25 to 30 quid, which for a blended whiskey that's not hugely aged is more on the expensive side. But part of that is the marketing and the luster about the brand itself. It's a big brand. It's marketing itself as a luxury brand. But all in all, very, very good. I'm not sure if for the same amount of money you could pick up something like, say, Old Pulteney. If this was next to an Old Pulteney at the same price, I'd go for the Old Pulteney any day of the week. But if you can find this for 20 quid, or you've got somebody that likes blended whiskies, yeah, it's well worth a go. Right, I'll do a quick wish out, a quick rinse out, and we'll get on to the next one. So I'll see you next time.